Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. We're just going to be talking about looking into the new lines they've been releasing, or that are coming out, and one of these it's rumored to be coming out soon, but we don't have any confirmation from Wargaming on that yet. But we're not going to look at any of the mechanics or things or any of that, like the recent changing of premium consumables, how they're going away, and how you can now mount up to 21 signal flags onto your ship if you really want to. So we're just going to be looking at the lines that have been coming out. So we're going to go from newest confirmed all the way down to ships that have recently been fully released. So we're going to start with the German carriers, and the first question is, did anyone ask for this? Did anybody ask for German aircraft carriers? I would find it odd that in the current state of the game that anyone besides CV players would want German aircraft carriers. It does seem a bit strange that a nation that only had one carrier, which is the Graf Zeppelin, which is already in the game, that to my knowledge didn't have any large-scale plans to build more aircraft carriers, get a whole line of aircraft carriers, a full line of aircraft carriers. Now, a good thing about the German carriers is that they are a bit different from other carriers in being that they are geared away from just hunting down and ruining the days of DD captains. They have armor-piercing rockets, which are going to overpin on destroyers. Wargaming has said that. And they are geared more towards doing damage to battleships and cruisers. Ships that, well, are supposed to have pretty good AA protection from carriers, but we will see how this works. And they've said that these AP rockets, they are going to have the similar properties to 203 AP rounds, and we'll see how this gets tweaked out. And they also look to have decent secondaries on the higher tier carriers, so it looks like they are staying true to the trend that the Graf Zeppelin started, but it doesn't look like they will be the insane secondaries that the Graf Zeppelin has. They are of a smaller caliber than Graf Zeppelin's secondaries, but it looks like they will have decent secondaries. And overall, I think they're interesting. It's an interesting design, and I really wasn't expecting German aircraft carriers. But all in all, probably not what the game needs right now. And yes, it has been some time since the last carrier line got introduced, the British aircraft carriers. But, I mean, when you look at the history of aircraft carriers were mostly used in the Pacific theater of World War II, and it was mostly just American and Japanese. And sure, the British did make carriers and did launch carriers, and those are in the game. So you've got all three nations which really produced aircraft carriers. They're already in the game, and there are a couple of examples here and there. Italy did try to build one, and we do have the Graf Zeppelin from Germany. But overall, I mean, sure, you're going to have to use paper ships eventually, but are we really at that point in the game where there's not other ships and other classes that could be added in to where we have to default to German aircraft carriers? I don't think so, but apparently Wargaming does think so. And again, it is an interesting concept, and I will be following them with great interest. I'm not a carrier player, but they're different. I gotta give them that. So next up is the new Soviet cruisers. First question again for this is, did anybody ask for these? Why are we getting a new heavy cruiser? Is something wrong with Moskva? I recently unlocked Moskva, and I gotta say, she's a pretty nice ship. She's like a Stalingrad Junior. Her AP is very good. Her HE is pretty good. She's got good radar, and she fills all around okay. I can understand them splitting the line between heavy cruisers and light cruisers. It's worked well with the American cruisers. We have the Des Moines and the Worcester now. Both have different playstyles, and same with the British. We now have the Minotaur and the Goliath, and ships that go down all the way to where they split. And sure, that's good for the game. It adds more ships, adds more variety into the game. But a Soviet cruiser line split? I mean, sure, again, like I just said, I can understand splitting the line between heavy and light cruisers, but the ships they're replacing, ship like the Moskva with, What's wrong with the Moskva? Why couldn't the Moskva stay as the tier 10 heavy cruiser? Now it's going to become a premium ship. And the Petro seems to be a bit overtuned, and I'm saying overtuned and not completely overpowered because keep in mind most of the footage that you're watching of Petro is being played by CCs that have played this game for many more games than I have, and they play it just generally longer than I do. And I'm an average player, and just about everyone in the World of Warships community, we're average players. That's what average is. So it does still seem like it's overtuned because there's plenty of clips of this thing citadeling Kerr firsts, angled Yammies, Montanas, Republics, Kremlins even, from ranges and angles that a heavy cruiser really shouldn't be pinning a battleship from with 220mm guns. And a couple of things about her, it falls into kind of that Russian bias category, but I would argue just about every nation has their own bias ships, if you will. But, they look interesting, the Petro and the other replacements for the lines in the new Tier 10 Soviet light cruiser, but they still do need some tweaks, and maybe they will get them. We don't know. Wargaming is very good at leaving a ship alone until a couple days before release and then suddenly changing it and then releasing it. And again, these ships, they are interesting. The line split, it is interesting, but probably not really what the game needs right now. I mean, sure, the split, I see that. That makes sense. But adding in ships to replace ships that are already there, like having the Petra replace the Moskva, is that really what we need to be focusing on right now? Next up, the Pan-European DDs. These are pretty unique DDs. They have very fast torpedoes, quick reloads on their torpedoes, don't do a whole lot of damage per torpedo hit, but boy can they vomit out some torpedoes. Their guns aren't all that great. They're fairly nimble-ish. They're not the fastest destroyers ever. They do get heals, and they're challenging to play. They're certainly not for me. And all around, they've been rather well received from the community. You don't see a lot of people raging about them in chat as much as some other ships. And, it's good to add in a line for a new nation, quote-unquote, because this is a pan-European. Well, they're mostly Swedish destroyers, but I can see why Wargaming did add them in, because, of course, adding in a pan-European line, that adds in the ability for them to throw in all these misfit battleships and cruisers that were made by the European powers, especially in the early 1900s, like the Verbis Unitas. That's an Austro-Hungarian dreadnought, and it's in the pan-European line, just like the Pan-American line. Whenever they decide to touch that thing again, that allows them to add in all the cruisers, destroyers, and battleships that were either bought from somebody else by the South American countries, or even built by some of them, because some of them did manage to build some dreadnoughts and cruisers in the early to mid-1900s, so that's understandable why those two lines were added in. But there's one line that's constantly been pushed back and back and back and back again, over and over and over again, or just not really much has been said about them besides some rumors here or there. And that is the Italian battleships, as you can tell by the title of this video and the thumbnail of this video, and the match you're watching right now. So Italian battleships, my argument here is that they have been long overdue at this point. To where, it's really at the point where the reason I mentioned the German carrier line and the Soviet cruiser split is because, are we really at the point, Wargaming, to where, Italian battleships are just, I guess they think they're just not wanted by the community, when it's pretty clear that the community would very much like to see them in the game, especially in front of a German carrier line that didn't even exist in real life. You had the Graf Zeppelin. They were looking at maybe building another one, but not to the scale and to the class of what you're seeing here. And I understand it would be cool to see a German carrier line in the future. And the Soviet cruiser split. Okay, cool. You know, you want to split the German, the Soviet cruisers into heavy and light cruisers. That's cool. That's fine. But then you spend time replacing the Moskva, which is a fairly well balanced ship, with something like the Petro, which is going to cause controversy the second it gets into the game. Um, and the Pan-European DDs, like I said, I get that. That makes sense. And we did get the Italian cruisers not that long ago. So it totally makes sense that Wargaming wouldn't just go, all right, here's the Italian cruisers, all right, here's the Italian battleships, back to back. It makes sense, and adding in things like the Pan-European line, then that makes sense. And then taking time to split the Soviet cruiser line, okay, that still makes sense. And but why are you replacing the Moskva with, we had a perfectly fine Tier 10 heavy Soviet cruiser? Do we really need to replace it with another one? But then German aircraft carriers, it's like, well, what's going on? Carriers, I'm not saying they're good, I'm not saying they're bad, but it's pretty clear that the community is still not over the CV rework, and carriers still have some tweaking that needs to be done to them, and it probably honestly never will. They will never find a perfect balance for carriers, in my opinion. They were a class that basically ended large, heavily armored capital ships in history. So it's going to be almost impossible, in my opinion, to balance them. I don't envy the devs that are trying to do that. But still, German carriers, and then we haven't even heard anything about Italian battleships besides rumors. And as far as I know, as I've been recording this, Wargaming hasn't said anything about Italian battleships, or Wargaming hasn't put anything out about Italian battleships. All we have to go off of rumors from who knows where. And it is rumored that Italian battleships are on the horizon, maybe. We don't know for sure because Wargaming hasn't said so. It's all rumors. All rumors. We'll make that clear. And finally, it would be nice to see them, but given what we've seen, it's like, okay, have they kind of given up on it because they're going with German carriers first, or what's going on? And the Italian Navy during World War II was actually a sizable force. You just didn't have the fuel to do anything, but it was real. It really existed. You have Italian battleships that you could easily make a line out of from Tier 3 to Tier 8 with ships that really existed. And that is, in my opinion, one of the coolest parts of this game. You get to interact with history that's accurately modeled, that has the same-ish characteristics that the real thing had in real life, with some leeways to gameplay balance and such. And it really existed, and it's been long overdue and deserves to be a game that's about surface combat ships from the early 1900s to the late 1950s or 1960s in some cases. But they're long overdue, and it's just to the point to where it's like, have they just forgotten about it? Like, really? Because of all the stuff they're putting in before the Italian battleships, or they just not like the Italians for some reason. But that's my spiel about that, and I just wanted to let you guys know what I think about Italian battleships and all the stuff Wargaming's putting out before them. I'm sure we will get them eventually. It's just a matter of how much longer is it going to be. We don't know. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows except for Wargaming. But that's my spiel. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. If you think it's time for Italian battleships, something that was real, or are you cool with getting these kind of papery ships, which I understand the allure of paper ships, because Wargaming can kind of do whatever they want with them, with things like the Georgia. I do like the Georgia. I think it's a fun ship. It is silly some of the things that ship can do, but I do like it. And Stalingrad, I do like that ship as well. Grosser Curve first, it's a paper ship. I'm not hating on paper ships. I'm just saying, it's kind of time for some more real ships. If you guys get what I'm saying. Anyway, guys. Enjoy the video, please drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. We're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. We just passed 9,400 subs, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you're having a great Saturday. Hope you guys are staying healthy and isolating yourself from the rest of the world during this time. I know we're probably stuck in this for another couple of months, and I will be here making videos almost every day until, well, even after this is over with, too. Anyway, guys, hope you have a great Saturday. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.